It's great to see you, Mickey.
Glad to be here.
Yeah.
Carlos, thanks for inviting me.
Yeah. Hey, Mickey, talk to our audience a little bit about reparations.
Well, one thing about reparations, Carlos, is that the issue of fighting for reparations has been around a long time. But you didn't hear much about it in the mainstream really until Brother Ta-Nehisi Coates wrote an article in Atlantic magazine in 2014 called The Case for Reparations. And that really brought the whole reparations discussion to the forefront once again. So at that point, a lot of people were hearing about reparations for the first time, even though the movement had been around quite a while. Most recently, if you've listened to some of the presidential debates, some of the Democratic candidates now are talking about reparations. It's questionable exactly how sincere they are about it and whether this is some pandering to get votes. But at least this conversation is now front and center. And then the other most recent event was in June. The Congress had a hearing on H.R. 40, which is a bill that was introduced by Congressman Conyers several years ago. It's been revamped at that time. So what we're seeing now is just a lot of attention being paid to reparations issue. And the important thing for us, those of us who've been involved in this movement for a while, is to make sure that the narrative doesn't get skewed. Because a lot of these folks, particularly the presidential candidates who's talking about reparations, really know little about the issue.
That's what I wanted to, I'm interrupting you. We had a discussion when I asked you to come on the program on camera, and I think I said to you, I thought that Claude Anderson was one of the main persons that were behind reparations. Tell our audience really the genesis to what you know.
Yeah. Well, reparations, basically, let me just say this essentially. Reparations is designed to repair the damage that has occurred to black people since slavery. Okay, and the initial reparations movement started even during slavery, but everybody remembers this phrase, 40 acres and a mule.
Right.
Okay, and this was what was called Field Order 15. It was an order by General Sherman after the Civil War to confiscate all of the land of the Confederate landholders, particularly on the east coast of southeast United States, Georgia, South Carolina, Florida, etc., and give each formerly enslaved family 40 acres.
Right.
Okay, and then in use of a government mule. Okay, and that was actually passed, but the ensuing president, I can't remember who it was at that time, but basically
He nullified it.
Nullified the order.
He was a Southerner. I've read a little something on
But that didn't stop the reparation movement. It continued, and one of the persons that I would mention is Callie House. Okay, Callie House was a sister who started this group, the National Ex-Slave Pension Movement. Her viewpoint was that that slavery had ended, but they had basically turned loose all of these slaves with nothing.
Nothing, right.
Okay, so here they are, formerly enslaved, now they're free, basically with nothing. And so she argued that every person who had been enslaved deserved a pension from the U.S. government. And so she started this movement for what was called pensions then, but it was really a form of reparations. And Callie House was harassed by the government, and that movement was eventually destroyed. But it didn't stop the reparations movement. Probably the next important figure was a lady named Queen Mother Moore, who took up the call for reparations back in the 1950s. And Queen Mother Moore she's an extraordinary woman, and she lived to be 98 years old. She was a woman who worked not only from Marcus Garvey to Jesse Jackson. Okay, her career extended that, and so she basically took up the struggle for reparations, and she's called the mother of the modern reparations movement. And then
say her name again for my audience.
Queen Mother Moore.
All right.
Queen Mother Moore. I think her full name is Audrey Moore, but I would encourage people to
look her up.
Queen Mother Moore. She's really important. She doesn't get a lot of attention, but those people in the reparations movement, everybody.
They were some of the foundation.
Yeah. Most recently, in 1989, in COBRA, the National Coalition of Blacks for Reparations in America, took up the struggle. In fact, just this year, in June, COBRA had its 30th anniversary. It was founded in 1989 in Detroit, and I attended. And COBRA is the leading organization.
Spell that out for me.
It's NCOBRA, National Coalition of Blacks for Reparations in America.
All right.
And so that is the front and center organization now that's pushing for reparations.
Why are reparations so important issue in today's?
Well, when the issue of reparations came up in Congress, Mitch McConnell, I think it was Mitch McConnell, said, well, that happened a long time ago. I didn't have anything to do with slavery, and people today didn't have anything to do with slavery. And I think there's a misconception that reparations focuses only on what black people lost during slavery and the free labor during slavery. But we have to understand that since slavery, the discrimination and oppression of black people has continued up until this day, and mainly through a lot of government policies. But if you look at from time slavery ended and the whole 40 acres and a mule was denied, if you look at the inferior education, health care, housing, all those things that have occurred over the years, that's all part of the legacy of slavery. And the government played a major role in that. I mean, if you look at things like the GI Bill, a lot of white people got their initial wealth through home ownership, through these servicemen coming back and making use of the GI Bill, not only for housing but for education. Well, a lot of black people, like my father, for example, were denied the GI Bill. The Federal Home Administration, in trying to encourage home ownership back in the late 40s and early 50s, had a program where they would provide money for mortgages, for families. And as you know, home ownership is one of the foundations of wealth in a family. So here was a program that basically through government means, through these local regulations, like they did, they had these covenants, where
redlining and all of that
was government sponsored, and so that was a whole way that a lot of white people became privileged because they took advantage of these things, and we were not able to. So white people say, well, I didn't own slaves, my parents didn't own slaves, so why are y'all still talking about slavery? Forget about that. This is today. And the point is that the legacy of slavery is still alive and well. And one final thing I say why it's important is that if you look at statistics examining the wealth gap in this country between black and white, in 2013 a study was done. The median net worth of a white family was $142,000. The median wealth of a black family was $11,000. And the question becomes, well, how did this
occur? And why?
And it started with slavery, and it started after slavery, but through a series of oppression of black people up until this point, that wealth gap has grown, and there's been some studies done that says that in order for that wealth gap to be closed, even with some progressive legislation, it would take 225 years to close that wealth gap. So the question becomes, how do you close that wealth gap? And what we're saying is that without some radical intervention, particularly like reparations, that wealth gap.
Well, they did it for the Germans, the Chinese, the Japanese. They've done it for everyone but us.
Yeah, there's definitely precedent for reparations. I mean, we look at the Japanese, we look at the Native Americans. Which, and I'm not saying that's not deserved. It's very much deserved. But when it comes to black folks, it's like, well, that was a long time ago. Forget about that. We give y'all civil rights. We give y'all affirmative action. And plus, y'all got a black president now. So
Whoop-de-doo.
Yeah, so forget about this whole
reparations issue
argument. Yeah, so
I thought Mitch was saying, well, we gave you the black president. What more do you want?
Yeah, pretty much. So there's definitely a long history of the fight for reparations. And I know one of the arguments that I encounter is making, this will never happen, But the more this issue of reparations is pushed to the forefront.
That cutting you off. That's what I want you to tell our audience what they can do to help push this movement forward.
Well, first of all, I just want to say to people who despair about reparations and say, well, it'll never happen. There are really some forms of reparations that's taking place. For example, Georgetown University, this is one example, the administration realized that a lot of the foundation, the initial wealth that created Georgetown came from slave labor. So what they're talking about doing now is possibly putting in place a program that blacks who are descendants of slaves can get free education.
I thought Harvard was trying to do something.
There are other institutions because a lot of these older education institutions
were built by slaves.
Slave labor, as well as a lot of the major business like insurance companies. There are a couple of insurance companies that are basically saying, well, our initial wealth did come from slavery, and maybe we should do something. And in fact, there's been this series called 1619 that's been running in the New York Times that has really documented how the initial capital accumulation of the United States that made the United States one of the wealthiest countries in the world came from slave labor.
What's the name of that? Tell our audience again.
There's a series called 1619 that has been running in the New York Times. A lot of the white folks have been going crazy over this, like, what are y'all talking about? But it points out how a lot of the founding fathers had owned slaves, and that it's well documented that a lot of the initial accumulation of capitals that made this country great, so to speak, came from slave labor.
I'm going to try to wind this up, but I want to say this. The problem with the majority community is the same problem that we have overall. How we teach history and what we're putting in those textbooks only reinforces the majority community that there's nothing wrong, and that they don't, in the history books really that they're using really don't point out who built America.
Okay, let me just point two more things before we close. Right now, people should pay attention to HR 40, which is the bill that was introduced by Congressman John Conyers back in 1980s, 89 or somewhere in there. The initial bill was a bill that was designed to study whether or not there were residual effects of slavery and whether or not black people should be compensated for that. The bill was reintroduced, I think it was by Congresswoman Jordan last year in the House, and Cory Booker in the Senate. It's been updated to say that we know now that there are these residual effects of slavery. There's no question about that. The question now is, how do we address it? That's what HR 40 is about now. And I'll just end on saying this. When everybody think about reparations, they think about getting a check. Okay, reparation is not about getting a check, even though that can be a part of it. Part of the problem is that we need some internal reparations to get our heads straight, because if they gave every person a check now, white folks would probably have it in 2 or 3 days. They'd have all that money, because we've got some internal work that we have to do. But reparations can take the form of land, scholarships, community development, free education, tax relief. There's so many forms that reparations can take. So it's not just about.
But if they get real serious, I think they'll do something on all them fronts that you just mentioned.
Well, that's the idea. And it's not going to come easy. I mean, there's no doubt about that. And it's not that we're going to put our struggle for liberation off until we get reparations. But it's definitely there's justification for it. And one of the things we want to do locally is that we want to have the city council sponsor a resolution in support of HR 40. A number of cities have done that. And that will get this discussion of reparations really out in the open in Kansas City, because we don't have an Angoba chapter here, and there's really been little discussion about reparations in Kansas City. So we think that by introducing this resolution, it would really jumpstart a lot of discussion about the reparations movement.
Well, what I would say the Cascade Media Group is willing to do is to host a panel to talk about that. We get a schedule so that we can keep that in the forefront. Last thing, I've talked to you off camera about this digital footprint. I think one of the most important things that we can do as a community, especially here in Kansas City, is have a digital footprint like What's Up Kansas City and what Cascade Media is doing with. And I'm not beating my own chest or anything, but it's only logical that we are able to communicate with one another. And I think that we have a good platform to do that with. And in closing, I would say to our audience, go to What's Up Kansas City's Facebook page, YouTube channel, and you'll find some things that will interest you, especially if you go to our website, whatsupkansascity.net. And in closing, what I always say, when you invest in your community, you're really just investing in yourself.